See him a beast when you hear that sound like yeah, beat on the beat when you hear that sound like woo. Yeah, bitch and the champ only need one round like ha. Yeah, me, I'm a G-Ring, he in the sound like
Mike Owens here. Today I'm joined by Dilano Taylor, who returns to action on PFL 3 next weekend versus Magomed Umalotov. Dilano, great to sit down and chat. How are things at you today?
Pretty good, pretty good. Great to be on. Great to be here and able to talk.
Look, the pleasure's all mine. As we were talking a little bit about off camera, the last time we spoke, you got perhaps the most devastating knockout of your career. Certainly the most high profile over Rory MacDonald. Let's just reflect on that last win and that last moment in Cardiff for just a second.
Yeah, that was a very surreal moment. I almost didn't believe that it happened until I kept watching the replay. I was like, oh wow, that's me. Crazy.
What was your relationship like to Rory? Like as a fan and as growing up, like where were you when say he was fighting for say the UFC title against Robbie Lawler? What was your relationship like to him?
2015. That was 2015 when he fought Robbie Lawler. I believe the second time. I was actually graduating high school, just starting MMA.
Wow, yeah. Talk about full circle.
Yeah, definitely full circle. Well, it was like definitely a very full circle moment for sure.
Speaking about full circle, you're fighting the opponent that Rory MacDonald was meant to fight in Cardiff next Saturday night. What are your opinions on your opponent, on your upcoming opponent?
My opinions is he's just a fighter, bro. I actually wanted to fight him. I told him that in the finals right before I fought Sadabu last season. I seen him in the back. I was like, hey, bro, you're a good fighter, and I would love to fight you. I really want to go out there and fight against the best or against people who believe people are the best. So I want to really go out there and test myself every single time. So he's definitely one of those guys I want to go out there and see.
When you say that, do you think that people are looking at him as the tournament favorite? You said there, you think you want to fight the people who are the best. Do you think people are going in thinking he's the one to beat?
Oh, for sure. I'm pretty sure like people are thinking he's like one of the favorites. If not him, of course Sadabu, and if not Sadabu, I'm assuming Magomed Karamov, the guy I lost to last season, that I fought on a day's notice. I'm pretty sure they're talking maybe him, but definitely, I mean, he's the only guy I think on the roster with the undefeated record currently.
Yeah. So when you look at his game, what do you think he does well? What do you think are the potential areas to exploit?
But I think he does well. I think he does well at he's pretty good with using his range, I would say. Good footwork, knows how to move in and out. His counter grappling is pretty good. But besides that, he just seems very regular. There hasn't been anything that's been like, oh my God, he's just so good here. I don't know what like he's not like a Khabib. He's not a Khabib. He's not like a specialist anywhere. He's just a fighter.
The attributes that you mentioned there, I think you could describe to yourself in terms of good anti-wrestling, good footwork, and all of that. Like, do you anticipate this is a similar style matchup between yourself and Umalatov, or do you think there's key differences?
I think it's a similar style matchup, but the only difference is I'm a pressure fighter. I pressure more than anything else. I think the only fight that I wasn't really pressuring in was against Zeferino, and that was my very first short notice fight in PFL. And after he took me down, it was like, oh, I don't need to be here. Let me just use takedown defense. And even with Zeferino, I pressured him the end of the first, all of the second, and mid third. Like I pressured him the whole fight. He was on his back heel the whole time. And I think that's a pretty big difference between me and Umalatov. Umalatov doesn't. He's like a pressure-esque fighter, but he doesn't really pressure. He kind of just like inches forward, I guess, but he's not like when I say pressure, I mean like he's not throwing anything behind the pressure. He's just walking people down, and they're just kind of like either afraid because he can wrestle or what. I don't know.
Can we talk about your 2022 season, because it was kind of one of the most bizarre years I think I've ever seen in a fighter's life. As you mentioned there, you have 3 short notice fights culminating in a first round knockout on a couple of days' notice over, a Hall of Famer in Rory MacDonald. Obviously, you then go from that to fighting for $1 million, and obviously a losing effort against Sadabu, but very much a back and forth fight and a valiant effort. Can you just reflect on what the 2022 season was for the man competing in Dilano Taylor?
Man, the 2022 season for me was a very surreal year. Like, obviously, people didn't expect me to be there, but I was supposed to be there. If that makes sense. Like, that clearly, like, that was my path. That was my claim. That was what needed to happen for me. That's where I needed to be. And it basically just kind of showed me that I am exactly where I belong. I'm exactly where I need to be. Like, I'm with the some of the best guys in the world, fighting at the highest level of fighting in the world, and this is where I need to be. Like, there hasn't been a question in my mind or a doubt in my mind that I didn't deserve or I don't deserve to be here.
Yeah.
You know, I work hard. I put the grind in. You know, I'm probably working harder than a lot of the guys on the roster, and I genuinely believe that I'm here. I'm here for that reason. And I'm here to be that guy to win the million this year.
When you think about how well you did getting down to the final two, and as you mentioned, the lack of preparation you were allowed to have in those first three fights, does that inspire confidence that you can not only get all the way to the final this year, but also lift that world title in November?
100%. What really gave me the confidence is knowing for a fact that I can go out there on short notice and really go out there and put hands on these guys and walk out victorious. You know, it's a lot. Of course, it's different when you have time to prep for somebody, the mental aspect of it, the emotional aspects of it. But at the end of the day, a fight is just a fight, and I can go out there not knowing what he's gonna do. Like, I could be saying this, and this, and this is what I think he's gonna do, and this is what I think he's gonna do. But at the end of the day, he can go out there and just be a completely different person. So that's what really gives me the confidence that on any notice, short notice, long notice, doesn't matter, whatever notice, I go out there and I put hands on them, and I'll come out on top.
Of course. Obviously, we got to talk about the world title fight against Sadabusi, as you mentioned. Obviously, as we mentioned, that was a fight that never went your way, but very close and competitive fight. Just 5-6 months removed from that, what are your emotions on that last fight against Say?
My emotions on that fight are, you know, I give him his flowers. You know, he did what he had to do to win. I personally don't think that the way they scored that fight was, you know, accurate to what was actually going down, I feel. But it doesn't matter how I feel because it's already said and done. You know, it's the past. But you know, props to him. He did his thing. This season is my season, so that's all that matters.
Speaking of last fight and moving from emotions to another, we've got to talk about last weekend because one of your good friends, Impa Kasanganay, was back in action for the second time this year in the PFL. Obviously goes through the Challenger Series and then gets that win over Corey Hendricks last week. Obviously, yourself and I, in many ways, connected through Impa and that wonderful night in Cardiff. So I'd just like for you to give me your emotions on seeing Impa in many ways following your footsteps from the PFL Challenger Series right the way into the main shows.
Man, I'm excited for Impa, man. I know for a fact that he's definitely like the dark horse of the tournament. People are probably not even looking at him. They're definitely overlooking him. And I feel like all he needs is his opportunity. He's been having his opportunities and he's been shining. And I think Impa could be the guy to win this tournament if, you know, he gets tossed in there short notice because, you know, he's like the ultimate right now. But I think Impa's going to be that guy to do it.
It's you three in many ways. When I look on your Instagram, it seems like yourself, Impa, and Jason Jackson. Just obviously, there's other guys involved, but it feels like there's a little trio down there in Kilcliff FC. Can you just talk to me about the rounds that you three must experience and that kind of round robin that might be taking place on the mats down in South Florida?
Man, those rounds are like, they're some of the most annoying rounds, but they're the best rounds in that room. I'm not gonna lie to you. They're definitely the most annoying rounds, but they're the best rounds in the room. In my personal opinion, you know, besides of course Gilbert and a couple other dudes, but I think, you know, Jason and Impa are some of the best rounds that I have in that room, and vice versa for them as well. There's just something about when you have guys with the dog mentality, the like-minded mindset of just wanting to win and wanting to be the best, and then of course the technique and ability to actually apply it when it's time. And when that comes together, also the good energy. So it's like, you know, like big brother, little brother, you know, I'm the youngest of all three of us. So like, I'm definitely like the little brother, and, you know, like they've been trying to big brother me. So I got to go out there and I got to put hands on them, you know? So it's definitely like good energy. You know, nobody leaves upset or anything like that.
No, I can well imagine. Actually, I want to read you back a quote that kind of stuck with me when I spoke with Impa on that night. We obviously talked about you and your victory. I can remember Impa saying to me that Dilano's one of the hardest working guys in the room, but he's the nicest guy in the room. And that really stuck with me as such a nice quote for someone to say about the training partner. So conversely, the floor is yours. Give me your opinion on the man that is Impa Kasanganay.
Oh man, I can say the same thing about Impa. Like he's like, I have this thing of with people who are like super kind, like kind and gentle people, like those guys. Those guys sometimes are the most dangerous guys to be around because they know what they're capable of, but they're able to control that. And Impa's definitely an embodiment of one of those guys. Very dangerous when it's time to be dangerous, but at the same time, like it's like the balancing. Like he's dangerous in one hand, and in the other hand, he's like he wouldn't hurt a bird or a fly or anything like that. Pick up a stray cat, something weird like that.
It's quite bizarre when you speak with him, but then you pinch yourself and remember that he's an MMA fighter because he, as you say, he wouldn't hurt a fly. He's one of the nicest people you'd ever meet. But then you put him in the right scenario and he'd hurt more than a fly. He'd hurt a guy of equal size and weight to him.
Yeah, that's just how he is, bro. That's just how it is, and I feel like that's what it takes to be a good fighter and be a good person or be a good man. You got to be a combination of dangerous and kind at the same time. People have to understand that like there are boundaries that shouldn't be crossed, but at the same time, understand that you never hurt them. Unless those boundaries are crossed.
Of course, of course. Obviously, turning back to conversation, back to yourself. Look, you're going into a tournament where the end goal is kind of twofold, isn't it? You can win a world championship at the end of this year, and you can also win $1 million at the end of this year. I just want to know on a kind of a scale, which one means more to you and why?
For me, winning the world championship means the most to me of everything. I feel like the money comes, or the money will come for sure when I just keep following my dream and following my goal. But how many people in the world can say they're a world champion? I can name 5 people on the UFC roster right now who have millions of dollars, but who have never been a world champion. Like I can, for instance, Dustin Poirier. I'm pretty sure he's a millionaire. Has not been a UFC world champion. He's had title shots. Same thing. I feel like Justin Gaethje's up there with those numbers.
Yeah.
Never been a UFC world champion. You know what I'm saying? But like it's things like that. Like I feel like that build up. Like anybody can be a millionaire. If you stick to what you're doing and you're diligent, keep your head down, and you work hard, I have no doubt in my mind that eventually you'll be where you want to be. But not everybody can be a world champion. Not everybody can say like, I was the world champion of PFL 2023, or I was the world champion of the UFC, or I was the world champion of Bellator. Not everybody can say that. That's a different claim to fame,
No, it makes total sense. And with that being said, look, when we see the guys in the regular season who've done this multiple times, the likes of Kayla's mentioned it, Brendan's mentioned it this season, Petter's mentioned it in his first season. The season is a slog in many ways. It's a hard, long road to get to that final in November.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, how do you prepare? What is your driving force to get back there where you were last year in that final and to ultimately achieve the goal of world champion?
What's my driving force? For one, my family. That's like one of the biggest driving forces that I have. Also, of course, for me being like that role model for my family and the people that I keep around me, the kids that I teach. My daughter, being that person who can, set the tone, set the pace, at least be an example. I'm not saying that I want them to be fighters or anything like that. I'm not saying that they need to be fighters, but I want to be able to look at them or have them look at me and be like, damn, that's a guy that I like admire. Like that's a guy that I kind of strive to be at least closer to. Also, my desire to want to be the best is also one of the things that drives me to be the best and to do better for myself. Also, I think lastly is the fact that I lost $1 million in the belt last year. Big driving force.
I can well imagine. All of those driving forces are fantastic in their own right. Look, Dilano, it was a pleasure to meet you and watch you fight in person in Cardiff. It really was. I wish you the best of luck for this upcoming 2023 season. And if we don't speak before, best of luck for Saturday night. Next Saturday.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Mike.